The first thing you need to know about Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, developed by Jam City, is that it is still an ongoing live game, which means that some of the things that I say in this video might not be relevant in the future. But in my experience, very rarely does a live title go through changes so drastic that it would require a total revelation. So most of the things will still apply, and when they won't, I will release an addendum. Hogwarts Mystery had quite a rough launch back in 2018. It was lambasted online for having monetization that is too aggressive while not giving the players enough things to do, severely criticized for its gameplay, or as some people would say, lack of it, and generally speaking gaining quite a negative reputation. And even I, as a person who rarely leaves ratings on Google Play Store in general, back then for some reason was so angry that I went to the game's page to leave 1 star without any explanation why. Maybe it had something to do with the aggressive monetization tactics, I honestly don't remember anymore. But recently, I have been playing Hogwarts Mystery for several months for the purposes of making a proper analysis of it and seeing if something has changed and if the game had deserved such a reputation in the first place. Funny story though, after creating a new character, I shortly after had to restart again because I've spent some in-game coins on customization and didn't have enough to activate a main quest activity, and that's due to a post-launch change that would remove repeatable classes in year 1. So, rough start, again, but in my review videos where I utilize my Stasocritic system, I'm always trying to be as reasonable and fair as possible. My name is Stanislav Costiuc, I am a game designer, and this is my review of Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, and we shall start with the design category. This is the most important category of Stasocritic, as it's about the way a game is structured and played, which defines our experience the most, so it has the biggest weight out of all scores, 4. Now, if you expect me to criticize what is essentially the core gameplay of Hogwarts Mystery, spending energy by clicking around on different active points within your story or side missions to complete them and gain different rewards, well, I'm not going to do that because, even though I'm personally not a fan, it's not a problem. We have to get away from the mindset that this is not real gameplay or whatever. Hogwarts Mystery is a mobile game targeted at absolutely massive audiences. Basically, everyone who likes Harry Potter. As such, it literally is not an issue that it is structured around regular visits. So when you have some free time, you could quickly take out your phone, get in, click around a bit to continue your story, and get out to come back later again. Context is very important when defining if something is the right direction or not, because game quality is usually not about doing a particular concrete set of design features, but implementing well what a game attempts to do in terms of its direction. With that in mind, while I think the core is fine, there are definitely some questionable moments. First, there is a big lack of scenes where you have to move the camera around to search for objects rather than have everything always within the confines of your screen. That greatly decreases the variety, even though the scenarios where screen panning is a thing prove that the simple act of moving the camera in search of clickables increases engagement. Then the implementation of clicking on moving objects is annoying, as the detection most of the time still seems to be related to a particular screen space rather than the location of the specific object we would like to press on, so in those cases you sort of miss many times. One post-launch update has introduced 3 different club factions that add different colored outlines to objects, and by clicking on objects that have a particular outline, you increase reputation within that faction. This seems like it was done with the intent of adding more choice to the whole process, but most of the time it doesn't matter anyway, and you just try to prioritize whichever is not outlined with the default blue to progress everywhere. This seems to be the case with every gameplay mechanic of Hogwarts Mystery. They're all pretty simple at their core, which is absolutely fine, but there's always something that removes any semblance of depth or decision-making, be it rooted in the feature or a change done in post-launch. For example, dueling is essentially a series of rock, paper, scissors matches, where if you win, you get to decide what spell to use. Some spells are weak but have strong lasting damage over time, some spells can stun enemies, there's a potion that can heal you, and so on. Here's the thing, when the game was launched, you had to win the rock, paper, scissors match to cast a spell. But after a post-launch patch, both parties do their moves regardless, and the minigame decides only who casts the spell first. Not only does this greatly reduce the efficiency of healing moves, as their effect is going to be essentially diminished instantly even if you win the rock paper scissors matchup, but also it creates a dominant strategy where your best bet is just to brute force absolutely every duel with the most powerful spell you have. Even some of the boss battles that are supposed to be about a more thoughtful process are better played if you just cast Flipendo over and over again regardless of what your opponent does. And as more spells get added to your and your opponent's arsenal, it's just a matter of figuring out which one becomes more dominant as your choice increases. There's also a missed opportunity in tying how well you drew the spell on screen to its power. The result, if you haven't made a mistake, is the same as when you did, and that's an aspect that could help with the feeling of skill mastery in this activity. During classes or as some of the friendship chat minigames, you will get asked questions. And there is rarely a way to learn the answer to them from within the game, especially for the class quizzes. It's either something you already have to know, test your luck, or just check the internet for answers. In general, friendship chats feel weird because a lot of the time they're written in such a cheesy way, like us trying to suck up to the other person rather than having a conversation that friends would have had. Also, these conversations are practically impossible to complete properly if you don't have enough attribute points. This makes the library study activity, which you unlock in year 3, a much better way to gain friendship with other students, not only thematically but also pragmatically, as you don't have to worry about attributes then. Speaking of attributes, there are a lot of dialogue choices in the game, but only a very small amount of them actually matters long term, with most influencing only what kind of attribute experience points you will receive as a result. And the most beneficial answers are pretty much always locked up behind attribute or friendship requirements, so you're usually out of luck if you happen to not have enough. Now, what Hogwarts Mystery lacks in depth of its actual interactive mechanics, it balances out with the sheer volume of things that you can do. In other words, loops. Hogwarts Mystery is all about them and about adding more and more of these loops as you go through the 7 years of Hogwarts classes. You have the character progression, economy and customization loops that feed into one another, but also as time goes on you get the class loops, friendship loops, dueling club loop, zoology loop, Quidditch loop, dating loop, library loop, charisma loop, card collecting loop, and the list just goes on and on. This is literally the perfect setup for a game which you'd want to get in regularly, as all the time there will be something to do. That is, in theory. Because in practice, Hogwarts Mystery manages to be a game where you can do so many things, and yet very often you can't do anything. And that's because of the mandated waiting, which acts as this game's most common friction point that hopes to get people to monetize, and, well, considering how successful Hogwarts Mystery is from a financial standpoint, this approach clearly works, but as a game designer, I can't agree with such aggression. And that's if we keep in mind that the developers have actually rebalanced some of the things to be more fair in comparison to their launch state. You will experience a lot of waiting in Hogwarts, and that waiting comes in 2 layers: implicit waiting and direct waiting. Implicit waiting comes in the form of energy. You have a limited amount of energy to complete actions in your missions, and it takes 4 minutes to gain an energy point back. Now, what makes it more implicit is the existence of objects across Hogwarts that regularly give you energy if you click on them. Flying classes can permanently raise your energy limit, there's daily quests that give you energy, also you get it from leveling up and so on, and sometimes the game itself gives 100 or 150 energy points, which, considering that your average energy limit is around 25-30, seems like it's huge. But it's not. Getting all stars in a class that lasts 8 hours requires about 90 energy points, so that's almost the whole gift spent on just that one activity. Yes, there are classes and missions that require less, but the point is that the whole energy economy is balanced in such a way that you really don't have a lot and need to come back into the game about every 2 hours to make sure you can progress. Spend that energy so you could wait a bit more while it regenerates and get back again. This has the effect of the game wanting you to adapt your schedule to its needs, rather than the other way around as it should be. But what is most egregious is how the game handles what kind of energy received can go over limit and what can't. If, for example, you receive energy from a gift or a battle pass reward or leveling up, it will go over limit. Energy that you get from clicking on an object in the world won't though. That's not as annoying as energy rewarded through daily quests not going past the limit. You will lose it if you accept the reward while your energy bar is full. But most annoying is the fact that if you watch an ad to get bonus energy, it won't actually go over the limit, even though you see the animation of it doing so, but it will reset when you change screens. While you may not be an active payer in this situation, you are watching a full ad that does provide revenue, and just being denied energy like that leaves a poor taste in your mouth. Now, besides the implicit waiting in the form of energy, there is also direct waiting in the form of everything. Sometimes you have to wait 3 to 8 hours before the next quest chapter becomes available. You need to wait hours between each friendship conversation. You need to wait between duels. You need to wait between feeding and bonding with animals. You need to wait between Quidditch matches. And it's not a small amount either. A bunch of these activity wait timers last from 6 to 15 hours. Which of course you can skip if you pay premium currency that costs real money. And this is so aggressive, especially considering that pretty much every aspect is accompanied by a soft limiter in the form of resources anyway. You need soft currency to activate a lot of those actions, or some other resource like food in case of animals. So it's not like you will be able to do all this in an unlimited amount of times. After you spend all your resources, you of course need time to gain them back so you could spend them again, or watch ads. But this is not enough for Hogwarts Mystery. It wants you to also wait, which means that it is not uncommon for you to enter the game and literally not be able to do anything there unless you cash up to skip some of that waiting. And even though the game has so many aspects where it asks you to wait, it comes in tandem with a lot of time-limited events during which you simply can't allow yourself to wait much. And I do mean a lot. Pretty much always there will be something that will pressure you for time. Maybe it's a time-limited quest that suddenly appears, and by the way, some of the missions in those timed quests will require you to wait before you can activate them, unless you pay premium currency of course. Sometimes these limited time quests will come at you one after another, and because of course they require energy, as soon as these quests appear, your progress everywhere else pretty much halts. There are also a bunch of competitive events. Some ask you to do a lot of in-game actions, ranging from classes to duels to whatnot. Some are focused only on one particular activity like Quidditch. Some, like Constellations or Potion Brew, require you to spend enough energy within a limited amount of days so you could get the resources needed for these timed events. And all the time in the background there is also the monthly battle pass. And not to mention that absolutely every mission in the game is accompanied by a timer where you need to get a certain amount of stars by spending enough energy within the allotted limit, which can be either 1, 3 or 8 hours. All that time pressure is essentially another friction layer on top of the waiting and resource friction layers that already exist. Hogwarts Mystery forces you to wait but makes it stressful to do so. It's weird to say the least. The irony of it all is that underneath all this aggressive monetization layer, we have a game that's not bad. Yes, there are plenty of ways different mechanics could improve, but at the end of the day, it's a solid collection of enjoyable simple loops that you can just get in and participate in, with a very large selection to choose from, which keeps getting even bigger as you progress. Feeding animals to discover what new animations they receive as your bond increases is enjoyable. Quidditch is a fine little minigame, like it's nothing special, but it works as one of the extracurricular things for you to do. You can customize your dormitory, you can get pets, which sometimes become part of quests. Hogwarts Mystery has everything it needs to be a nice storybook that keeps accompanying you on your phone for long periods of time. But all that is combined with tactics that literally try to drag money out of you unless you have a lot of willpower, like my wife. Everyone, I am amazed by her. She has more than 30,000 coins and 1,500 premium gems without paying a single cent. The way she has to optimize her playthrough to be comfortable is insane. But here's the thing, it's not good that she or any other player have to do that to minimize the tense feeling all these friction points are causing. And I'm a game designer, of course I understand that a free-to-play game like this can't actually stay truly free. But there are so many ways to balance your monetization, and Hogwarts Mystery does so in a pretty predatory way. This is why, should you open up all the scores for design, I will assign a 4. If we would look at Hogwarts Mystery outside of the monetization aspect, I think based on what it attempts to do and how it succeeds at that, I would assign a 7. Given my criteria for each score, that seems like it would have been fair considering what I have said about the game's mechanics. but absolutely every facet of the game is brought down by layer upon layer of friction on top of everything that has a direct intent to make you pay money, otherwise you'll be in a state of pretty constant stress. And I personally can't encourage this style of monetization design. Now, let's talk about context. This category has a weight of 1, as most of the time it's an aspect that enhances the experience rather than defines it through plot, motivation, character arcs, etc. Of course, Hogwarts Mystery being almost a visual novel, for this particular game these aspects are pretty important. Hogwarts Mystery has a pretty strong premise, which is about having a story with our personally customized character that takes place in the 7 years before Harry Potter joins Hogwarts. This means that you can have an intriguing standalone story while also providing some fan service by showing many of the book's characters before those events. The way Hogwarts Mystery succeeds at this is pretty hit and miss, and that's related not as much to the aspect of what story it is trying to tell, but how. Many of the main characters are actually very one-note. Ben is a muggle-born who is afraid of everything. That's literally his thing. Penny is a popular girl who really likes potions. Rowan, your best friend, is all about researching everything. That's his or her thing, as the gender of that character depends on yours. There are no character arcs to speak of, nothing changes, no new qualities are uncovered, with only a couple spoiler exceptions. The reason why it is so is of course the limited time quests that can appear at any moment and feature any of the characters, so they have to stay the same if they're to make sense within the confines of that timed quest. But also, very often these limited time quests come out of order. Sometimes you get a quest that features people you haven't met yet but are supposed to be your really good pals already. And there are also situations where timed quest chains themselves are given to you in the wrong order. Example being a questline where you know that a character, Kiara, is a werewolf, can come before the limited time questline where you meet her and learn that fact. So it is sort of weird that the game limits its writing to try and remain consistent, but then doesn't add conditions to unlock certain quests to ensure that it would actually be the case. The only non-spoilery exception out of all this in terms of the main cast is Merula. Essentially, this game is Draco Malfoy. Now, Hogwarts Mystery tries to make her more sympathetic and add more depth, but that's after showing her as an irredeemable bully for the first few main quest years, so these aspects of sudden redemption feel undeserved. What also hurts the main plotline of the game is the fact that it is being purposefully dragged out to be longer so as to have more live updates with a new story chapter. If you take a look at the amount of chapters in each year, and by the way each chapter can have a varying amount of missions, you can clearly see how it just keeps getting longer and longer. Year 7 is still in progress, but it already has more than half of Year 6 chapters, and I'm pretty sure the final number will get even higher. And not only the main story itself purposefully loses momentum and pace for the sake of live updates, but there's also all these side quests, many of which are time limited, that keep getting introduced to take your attention away from progressing the main story to prolong that as much as possible. I will unironically say that the part of the game narratively where I've had the most enjoyment is the Quidditch line. The character cast from those side quests doesn't intersect with the main story, so they're allowed to have drama. Yes, every one of them also has their thing, but also there is some complexity. Murphy is all about statistics and really long-winded ways to talk, but he also has insecurities and dreams. Sky might be all about being the best at Quidditch due to the pressure from her family, but there's also the whole aspect of developing a friendship with her that later on is going to get strained due to her impulsiveness and rash decisions. Drama, progression. It's not like the main story is devoid of that, of course. There are a lot of really nice moments there, both in the main and side quests, but it's just really stretched out, and the character cast isn't strong enough to keep you constantly invested in what will happen with you and your goal of finding your long-lost brother while trying to uncover the mystery behind the cursed eyes, even though pretty regularly you will get some nice plot points, dialogues, or events. So if you are to open up all the scores for context, I will assign a 6. It's certainly enjoyable enough, there's plenty of nice moments, not all characters are bad even if one-dimensional, but the game really spreads itself too thin, and there is a lack of consistency between the main story and the game's live events, which is very jarring. time to take a look at aesthetics. This is another category with the weight of 1, as it's again about things that enhance the experience rather than define it, this time through visuals, sounds, music, etc. Now, based on the footage, you can probably see that visually Hogwarts Mystery looks very nice. The stylized character models are high quality, the environments are lush and colorful, there are a lot of great animations. It's a good looking game. However, the high quality of its visuals stands in big contrast to the game's implementation of music and sound design, which is very lacking. Now, what sounds do you imagine when you see this footage? Probably those of wind, of people bumping into each other on their brooms as they attempt to be the first to pass the race. Maybe all that would be accompanied by some intense music. But in reality, we have this. In other words, nothing except the ambient class soundtrack. Tap dancing skeleton? You will see them tap dancing, but you won't hear it. There is a moment where 3 such skeletons provide a special performance, and it's exceptionally disappointing that there aren't even any music changes. This aspect is probably even more disappointing when it comes to taking care of different animals. There are so many fantastic animations related to feeding them or bonding with them, but they fall flat because there is literally no sound effects, not even noises that these creatures would make. And it's a crime because seeing those animations and how they change as these beasts start trusting you is a reward in and of itself, but it's not a whole package. And the music is very light on leitmotifs. It's mostly just some unassuming ambience that doesn't really provide any special feelings. Sometimes there are exceptions, but even when they happen, it can still feel off, like with Quidditch matches that have some more actiony tunes, but they keep getting cut off in a jarring manner. Even the sound design aspect that the game does do well, the voice acting grunts during dialogues, is sort of underdeveloped because there is a lack of voice snippet variety, so you'll hear the same very often one after another during literally the same conversation.
Ooh. Ooh.
So if you open up all the scores for aesthetics, I will assign a 7. Visually, the game is really good. But that positive, polished aspect is brought down by Hogwarts Mystery's lack of proper sound and music design. Let's talk about Cohesion. This category has a weight of 2, and it's all about how well the game connects all of its different aspects together into a singular, wholesome experience. And this is another category where Hogwarts Mystery has a good foundation, but one that is brought down by the way it implements or does some things. The structure is very fitting for a Harry Potter Hogwarts game. You go to classes, outside of those you try to uncover a mystery that keeps getting you into trouble, all while making friends and doing different extracurricular magical activities. That's literally a Harry Potter experience. And it works, but is brought down by 2 things. First is the lack of consistency that I have mentioned in the context section. The way all these different timed and side quests appear really make the whole experience feel more abrupt, taking you out of the immersion. Then there are cases when fan service is suddenly thrown at you with zero preparation. So, year 3 you get to know Tonks, a prominent character from the book series. But apparently, you already know her because she was in your class all this time, only there was never an official meeting. There are some classes that are supposedly taking place, but you're not actually playing through them until much later years, like Defense Against the Dark Arts. These things also feel out of place, because in a game that's literally about you performing pretty much every action out there, there's still things happening off-screen, and that's weird because they can be mentioned in dialogues and you had no idea they were happening. There's also other things like your character cast never visibly aging, which I know technically would be a pretty expensive thing to do, but it's weird, especially considering that you will start meeting students that are not just your age, but also older and younger than you are, and it's within that comparison when this becomes chatting. Another big thing that influences this category is how you're essentially a character who will eventually learn to do everything. Quidditch, choir, becoming an animagus. In time you will achieve absolutely all there is to being a wizard, and that lack of having strong and weaker points that will be unique to each player is also really noticeable. There are no electives which are part of the lore and could be used in the game to specialize yourself in one direction or another. There are no ways to develop strengths that will be unique to you because everything will be your strength. And all this is what really tips the scale in choosing a score to assign, which will be a 7. The gameplay structure provides a solid representation of a Hogwarts experience, of course accompanied with a lot of dangers in the supposedly safest school out there. But that being said, there are a bit too many things that make Hogwarts Mystery feel like a set of mechanics in the world of Harry Potter, rather than an actual magical journey you're embarking upon. Time for our final category, emotions. This is the most subjective part of Stasocritic. It's all about personal feelings one gets when playing the game, but it also has the second biggest weight, 3, because at the end of the day, these feelings matter a whole lot. Hogwarts Mystery is a strange game. I really want to like it because it has quite a lot of things going for it. But it's stressful. There were so many times when I had an oh shit moment after forgetting that I had only 30 minutes left before a mission would be finished, and it turned out I didn't have enough stars gathered for its completion. Sometimes I would enter the game in the evening and realize that I don't actually want to do anything there, because this means I would have to wake up early in the morning to finish the activity that would start now. Then there's the technical issues. Like, the game saves automatically very inconsistently, so you have to make sure to keep saving manually, otherwise if you close the app you risk to lose your progress. A lot of time completing a side quest for some reason tends to freeze the game and you have to restart and try to complete the mission again and hope for the best. Of course, I also can't forget about the fact how I had to restart the entire game from scratch, because Hogwarts Mystery introduces economy while removing in a post-launch patch a feature that will let you not get stuck if you actually utilize that economy. I've played Hogwarts Mystery for about 4 months, until the end of December 2021, and at one point I just decided to stop and felt better after. The funny thing is that I want to get back and see the full extent of Hogwarts Mystery. It's a nice way to spend some time, really. And I can't deny that I'm curious to see how the game's plot will unravel exactly, because at this point I'm at the end of year 3 and everything I know about the future is based on research rather than me experiencing it myself. But I also feel so much calmer not doing that. Maybe I'll be able to find a way to spend time in this game without too much stress, we shall see. But regardless, this is why, should we open up all the possible scores, I will assign a 7. I did enjoy the game, and I want to enjoy it more, but the friction points of Hogwarts Mystery really prevent me from doing so. Let's summarize everything. After all scores and weights are taken into account, Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery gets a final Stasocritic rating of 54. It's alright. Now, in case this is your first time watching my videos, I have to point out that in the context of my scoring system scale, unlike Metacritic, a score of 50 really means that the game is alright, not that it's bad. Actually, I would even go as far as say that Hogwarts Mystery is a very nice game, good even. But you sort of have to dig through all the aggressive monetization tactics to see that. and honestly be really resilient to them, because spending money is literally not worth it unless it's huge sums of cash, which is just ridiculous. And all these tactics sort of drip down and influence the other aspect of the game, including the narrative, which is a shame because that's arguably one of the biggest reasons to play it. But if you like Harry Potter and can resist pain, again, trust me, the balance here is really not in your favor. I don't really say this often because I want all developers to be supported, but do not pay for this game if you play it, do not condone aggressive monetization tactics. So yeah, as long as you can do that, chances are high you will enjoy Hogwarts Mystery. But for everyone else, this probably should be a pass.